You're listening to Inside Content, the TV industry podcast. This show is brought to you by 3Vision, a global TV industry consultancy specialising in content acquisition, strategy, research, and business development. Each episode, we give you VIP access to the views and experiences of senior TV executives and discuss the latest TV industry trends and insights.
Hello and welcome to Inside Content. I'm Toby Russell, CEO of 3Vision, and in this episode I'm joined by Dilip Bala, Managing Director for the Americas at Merzigo. They help premium content owners scale their revenue on platforms like YouTube and Facebook. We explore why YouTube is no longer just a marketing tool but a core distribution channel, how Facebook plays a powerful role for viral and unscripted content, and why localization, especially dubbing, is critical to global growth. Dilip also explains how Merzigo's model is designed to create genuine win-win partnerships with content owners, and we discuss their approach to monetizing deep archive content, the strategic differences between fast channels and YouTube, and how Merzigo uses data and scale to stay ahead in this fast-moving space.
Introducing Video Markets Tracker from 3Vision, your go-to source for global TV data. We offer regularly updated regional and global reports covering pay TV, SVOD, AVOD, and FAST across Africa, MENA, the Americas, Europe, and Asia Pacific. Make smarter decisions with insights you can trust. Learn more at 3vision.tv. Now, on to the episode.
Hi Dilip, how's it going?
Great, Toby. Good to be with you. Good to see you again.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So to begin with, could you give our listeners a bit of an overview of your role at Merzigo and what the company does, basically?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. So I'm Dilip Bala. I'm the Managing Director for the Americas at Merzigo, and I oversee our growth and client partnerships across North, Central, and South America. Just a little bit of background. I joined Merzigo about 18 months ago, and prior to that, spent 2 decades at Disney, where I also served in various executive roles across digital media and content distribution. So I've certainly seen the industry shift firsthand. But coming to Merzigo, so just a little bit about who we are, what we do. Merzigo, you can essentially think of us as a tech-enabled service provider. And we help premium content owners like studios, distributors, and broadcasters. We help them substantially grow their revenue on YouTube and Facebook. The company was founded back in 2018. We've since grown to well over 500 employees, manage over 5,000 channels. And we have offices in Istanbul, London, and LA, which is where I am based. And the last thing I'll just say really quickly about the company is I think what sets us apart is that it is really our business model. So we don't operate like a traditional media or marketing agency where we're charging a fee for doing your social posts and so on. We really view ourselves as a revenue partner. So we work on a rev share basis, and we also offer minimum guarantees in some instances to established partners where we see a real opportunity for growth. So, in that regard, we put skin in the game, and we're highly incentivized to grow our partners' bottom line. So yeah, that was a lengthy answer, but hopefully a little bit of background on myself and what we do.
No, that's great, and I like your background at Disney because I was there for about 10 years as well. So I know it's a great place to experience kind of lots of different things in the industry, and then move into a different kind of organization. So let's just kind of talk big picture about YouTube for a little bit, please, because obviously the whole kind of world of kind of premium content distribution has changed a lot certainly over the last 5 years, and YouTube's becoming more important, arguably, in the US market now. Why, what's your viewpoint on that? Why do all the broadcasters and studios and other distribution players need to have YouTube as part of their strategy? Because I think, a few years ago, it was part of the strategy maybe for, promotion, but not really much more than that.
Yeah, no, listen, I mean, it's really one of the key hot topics of discussion these days. Simply put, it's about meeting the audience where they are. And I think, you refer to the US, when Nielsen came out with their Gauge report a few years ago, it really was a bit of a massive wake-up call for the industry because it confirmed that, YouTube isn't just a social site anymore. It's really where the TV viewing is predominantly a TV viewing website, or sorry, a platform. And so when you couple that with the fact that they've got, 2.5 billion monthly actives, as a content owner, you have to sort of recognize there's a global audience there that just simply hasn't discovered your content yet. And I think to your point, Toby, that, the mindset has shifted, right? It's like YouTube is no longer just a marketing tool to drive tune in or whatever. It really is now like a legit direct to consumer distribution channel on par with a FAST or SVOD service. So the thing about it, though, is to truly win on the platform, content owners have to move beyond just short clips and really embrace mid-form and long-form programming, including like full episodes or full movies. And it's that piece of it, unlocking that growth opportunity, is where we at Merzigo come in to help with that. But broadly speaking, yes, I mean, it's this audience shift and the behaviors of consumers that is requiring broadcasters and, all premium content owners to really take this now very, very seriously.
And how about Facebook? How does that fit in?
Yeah, Facebook, it's so funny. We get asked this a lot because it almost seems like a much more sort of a distant second. But the truth is, Facebook video still commands a massive audience. And, the publishing strategy is very different, right? Like people aren't consuming mid-form, long-form content on Facebook. It's much more about reels and short form.
Right.
But because of the scale, there's still, and depending on the genre of the content, it's like, for instance, we see a lot of great performance around unscripted and reality content because it's all very shareable and viral moments. Facebook can work exceptionally well, not only as an audience reach, but even for monetization. So we have a, YouTube is the predominant piece of our business, but Facebook is certainly can be a very powerful tool as well.
And how do you work with clients? Do they typically do you typically work across both of those platforms for them, or do they come to you for YouTube and then say, hey, can you help us with Facebook as well?
Generally speaking, we will, propose both. We want to work across both because, I mean, there's definitely sort of some synergies and economies of scale when you're creating content for one versus the other. But it just depends on the content and the rights sometimes can be a factor. And, ultimately, if they want to just stick to one platform, we sort of, it's driven by the economics too. I mean, it's more meaningful when you have more platforms to publish against. So it's a conversation that is, it's a case-by-case basis, I guess you could say.
Okay. So I've got a few questions about how these kind of, how your deals sort of typically work, but maybe if we talk a bit about a couple of partnerships that were announced, relatively recently with ITV Studios and with All3Media. Maybe you could, if you talk us through about, kind of what you're doing there and how that's working for them and how you got them to decide to kind of work with you rather than, I guess they probably were doing things themselves. I think maybe if we talk through that a little bit, that'll probably answer most of my questions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. By the way, first of all, thank you for mentioning those two. partnerships. We're really excited about both of them, and we're well underway. Listen, I'll say sort of at a high level. It's very common for large companies to have internal social teams and initiatives around YouTube already. But I think what happens is when working with a partner like us, it creates this cumulative effect that can drive a much deeper impact. And what I mean by that is, just to unpack that a little bit, because we manage over 5,000 channels, we sit on a mountain of data. And it's really around understanding, we know exactly how the algorithm is shifting in real time. And that's what really sort of sets us apart from in-house teams or
Right.
an agency. And so we'll use that, that data to optimize, right? Everything from whether it's thumbnails or captions, titles, to even the metadata. And we're also, by the way, providing active community management to build fandom. Fandom's become a very buzzy thing these days, and you have a lot of premium publishers sort of talking about it and about how to grow fandom. At Merzigo, we don't just see fandom as super serving your existing subscribers or followers. That's what the existing in-house teams are really good at doing. For us, it's about using our expertise to really reach those new viewers who would otherwise, by the way, would have never even discovered your content to begin with. So in a way, it's like filling in those blind spots is, I think, how we can really help take, even established companies that have established teams to sort of the next level of growth in the way we approach things and the data that we have available. So I'd say that's how that's the value proposition, we're talking about.
So is it about situations where you have a company that's they're monetizing some of their content but not all of it? Is it about kind of blowing that out and expanding and doing more? Is it about going into more territories? What would be the sort of typical example?
So, and by the way, those are all strategies that we use in depending on each situation. So I'd say all of the above. But typically, what happens, right, is publisher, in-house team, they'll launch a channel, they'll see, initial growth, and then at some point it invariably will plateau. And it's like, okay, like now, how do you potentially take that to the next level? And that's where we can come in and help and use all our, the secret sauce, if you will, to really, 2x, 3x the growth and beyond. Because we're looking at it from a perspective of, because the audience is there. It's just about, getting it in front of them and bringing new people into the tent. And I think that's how we approach it. That's sort of, broadly speaking.
And you're very, I think in the kind of the company communication is, it seems like you're quite clear about you're happy to offer minimum guarantees in, for presumably the right kind of, opportunity, which is actually quite refreshing that you're ready to say that, kind of clearly publicly, because a lot of companies don't really want to talk about how they do deals, but I think that's quite good. But it's obviously I'm presuming it's a sign of your confidence in what you're going to be able to deliver, and how you're going to be able to deliver more than companies can often do themselves in-house. Is that the correct kind of read on that?
It is, yeah. You're pretty much spot on. Look, I think that it absolutely has to do with the fact that we've been doing this long enough, and we do have the confidence where we can, as I said earlier, put skin in the game, and we feel confident that we can deliver. I will just say, it's not like we're just dishing checks, all sort of, throwing the bills up in the air. It's particularly effective if you've got an established channel that's already at a certain level, right? And like if a partner's going to hand that over to us or bring us in, we've got to you've got to back it up with some real economics behind it. You can't just be like, no, we promise we'll do much better, or we'll set
Yeah.
some,
Yeah.
It's like,
That's a difficult sell, to management. Yeah.
And so we're in especially in those instances where it's an established property and there's already a proven business case. And by the way, we feel that, in many cases, we do feel like we can take it to quite a bit of growth. That's when that type of a discussion comes in.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So,
Interesting. Great.
Yeah.
And in terms of in terms of the world of fast, which has been kind of a big topic, and a lot of people have been very excited about the whole kind of explosion of fast channels, and it's become, I think, it's become a significant business in the US for sure.
Yeah.
How does YouTube, in your view, kind of interact with fast? Is it something that's complementary? Is it something that's kind of competitive? And what's your view on that, and what's your kind of involvement with fast?
Yeah, no, it's a great point, and actually having worked in fast prior to joining Merzigo, it's a topic that's dear to my heart. Look, I think, if we sort of talked about the audience size on YouTube earlier, right? If you're only distributing on fast platforms today, you're only tapping into a fraction of the total opportunity, because, most of the TV viewing is happening on YouTube. In regards to your question around, is it complementary? We absolutely see it as complementary, in the sense that fast platforms tend to be these sort of content walled gardens where the platform is the gatekeeper. Whereas YouTube is, an open ecosystem that really allows for much broader discovery. And so the trick is to use that reach on YouTube and let it act as a funnel, sort of build awareness. And then using that awareness to drive viewers to your other AVOD, FAST, or other even SVOD services. So you have to be playing in both and leveraging, the audiences of one to drive to the other. And obviously that's not even counting the monetization on YouTube, but just from an audience perspective, it's definitely, goes hand in hand. You can't just be in one and not the other, or particularly you can't just be in fast and not on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting, because I've had discussions with content providers, in the last sort of 6 months, or who are, they've got, they maybe got fast channels in kind of international markets, and some of them, they're kind of going, well, we're not sure these are really working for us at all, but they've not been doing too much in YouTube, and they're going, actually, YouTube looks like a better opportunity, so we'll close down those fast channels and focus on YouTube.
Yes, no, that's exactly right. And that's sort of a conversation we have on a very regular basis is, we're not saying close down your fast necessarily, unless, it's just losing money per se, just because of all the investment going in. But it's more around, if you want to tap into the total opportunity, that you got to look at the whole pie, right? I mean, you got to follow the audience and follow the money. And so it's like you have to be on YouTube as well. That's how we see it.
Okay, great. So obviously you're looking after, all of the Americas, which is some quite kind of varied sort of markets and varied dynamics, I'm sure. What's the kind of LATAM market looking like in terms of well, I don't necessarily compared to the US, but just kind of what are the dynamics in the LATAM market in the kind of YouTube space?
Yeah, no. I mean, there's definitely,
very... even calling it the LATAM market is ridiculous as well. It's so in itself is so kind of, diverse and varied.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, there's definitely, different dynamics in play. The obvious one is, CPMs, right? So North America commands the highest CPM rates. LATAM is generally lower. In fact, that's one of the reasons why having North American rights is so vital for monetization on YouTube, regardless, by the way, of what language the content was originally produced in. That being said, though, I will say we do see, huge opportunity for LATAM as well, LATAM broadcasters and studios, because their content, like let's use telenovelas as an example. I mean, it travels exceptionally well globally. And so we can take that, localize it, at scale, and then distribute it in high CPM markets to maximize its value. So that's the interesting dynamic, I think, about LATAM specifically, is that there's huge opportunity, with taking that content, more globally, which YouTube offers, at scale. So that's how we see it.
And in terms of the sort of the opportunities in those countries, are they? Is it really about kind of market size? The bigger ones, is it about market size? So is like kind of Brazil and Mexico, are they like the, by far and away the biggest kind of from a revenue potential, or are there other dynamics?
Yeah, I mean, I think, there's this sort of typical, you're right. I mean, Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, Chile, Argentina, they're sort of the top markets and producers and the sort of conglomerate groups that are, outputting content globally, are certainly, key areas of opportunity and key areas of growth. But ultimately, it's people that are sitting on libraries of premium IP, I would say, at large, right? And we certainly find that in the US and in other regions of the world. And so those are also, there's opportunity for, folks like that, companies like that as well.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, and obviously, Turkish content has been, is an incredible success story in traveling around the world, and I'm sure Merzigo's had plenty.
That's
to
exactly right.
Plenty to do there with that.
It's been one of the biggest successes in LATAM, actually. Those dramas being dubbed into Spanish and Portuguese.
No, that's cool. So can we let's talk about localization a little bit?
Yeah.
Because that's obviously a critical element for success.
Yeah.
On any of these platforms. What's your approach there? What are the kind of tricks of the trade? What's really important to consider?
Yeah. No, listen, there's a couple of things to keep in mind. And, localization is something that more and more people are eager to hear about. And we have a great deal of experience in this one. So localization, just to sort of break it down, it typically means two things. You're either dubbing content into a whole new channel in a different language, or you're subtitling. And our data shows that when you dub content into a new channel, it's far and away, in excess of 3x or more revenue opportunity, versus if you just subtitle a particular channel. And the reason for that, and perhaps an obvious one, is the algorithm. If it's a dub channel, the algorithm treats it as native content and boosts it to a much wider audience of native speakers through search and recommendations. And so you just mentioned it, but, Turkish content, for instance, we've seen incredible success, whether it's Turkish or, when we've dubbed the content into Spanish or even Arabic, by the way, is very, for monetization purposes, it's within our top 5, top 10 to dub into. And that's because you're using that to reach the diaspora audiences that are living in the high CPM markets like the US. Because native speakers of Arabic, for instance, would rather watch, the Arabic channel version of your content in the US versus the English version, that type of thing. So that's why dubbing is such a key opportunity. You're not just targeting people in that region, in that country or something,
and obviously there's lots of talk about AI powered localization. What's your feeling about that at the moment?
So actually, it's funny. I'm glad you brought that up because for us, all our dubbing is human led, not AI. We're very aware that AI is advancing rapidly. And maybe a year or two from now, my response might be different. But today, and at least in the near term, we see human voices is still being able to more effectively capture those emotional nuances when you're, for premium content, premium storytelling.
Right. Okay.
Human, for us, it's all about, human dubbing at this point.
Right. Okay, got you. And then in terms of subtitling, presumably that can be automated.
It can be. I mean, like anything, whether it's subtitling or closed captions, accuracy is one of the key things. And so if we ever do it, and I don't know if we were just subtitling. Like I said, almost everything we do is more dubbed channel.
Right.
Because the resources and the effort to actually, subtitling and then having to check it again and doing a quality review and all that sort of stuff might, not be as cost effective. But
yeah. And obviously, the cost of anything that's going to be manual and involve lots of people like dubbing is going to have a higher cost. I guess what you're saying is there's definitely a ROI.
It's a net positive ROI, and because of our scale, we do some of the dubbing in house. We work with different dubbing studios within the region, and we get very, very favorable rates. And so that partly helps, with the keeping the dubbing costs sort of competitive. And then we typically, just based on, having done this for a while, we'll get a good sense for like, all right, here's what we see the revenue opportunity is. We know that dubbing is going to cost, depending on the language, call it $4 a minute or $8 a minute or whatever. And as you said, net ROI is positive, then we'll come to the content owner and say, hey, we really feel there's an opportunity to launch something in this language, and then so on and so forth.
Yeah, got you. And in terms of the those costs, how do they typically work into a deal? Are those something that you take out of the revenues before you do a rev share, or are they your cost? Or
no, it's a good point. And just to get a bit granular, so we'll do this initial ROI analysis for the partner and make the case, and we agree that yes, we need to move forward with a call it a Spanish dubbed version of the channel. Right. We basically collectively in the partnership will recoup the dubbing costs off the top. And then once the costs are recouped, then we move to the typical rev share model, whatever we have in place. The one thing that's beneficial for the content owner is that dubbed asset is theirs to keep. So they could use it for, their other platforms.
Right. Okay. So then they could go back and sell it to broadcaster or something using that.
One of the advantages that's because you've sort of paid for the cost up front for YouTube, and so that's a nice little that's a nice advantage of this as well. Is if you're looking and say, hey, I could potentially use this across other platforms as well, whether it's fast or anything else, or even linear, we could do that.
Okay, good. So obviously, this is a fast-moving, ever-evolving kind of space that we're in, particularly on the the platforms like YouTube and Facebook, with kind of rules changing all the time, and the algorithm kind of constantly kind of evolving. How do your teams make sure they're at the kind of leading edge of all of that? Because that's quite a challenge to keep up in that very competitive space.
Yeah, this is the heart of the business now you're talking about, right? Because being nimble about this stuff is really, we consider it core to our DNA.
Yeah, sure.
Quite honestly, our success depends on catching these platform trends early and incorporating them into our workflow, as soon as possible. And we have, good examples over the years. I mean, talk about Facebook briefly again. A while ago, they started really incentivizing shorter form content, reels. And so we didn't wait. We sort of pivoted very quickly to publishing, a much higher volume of reels across our network, to really try and stay ahead of the curve and make sure that our partners' revenue didn't sort of see this dip. I mean, Facebook has just been an up and down sort of, you look at the monetization curve for most publishers, it's a little, it's a bit of a bumpy one, but we've tried to smooth out those peaks and valleys through like trying to catch these trends. And I also think, look, our scale and our relationships with these platforms does help give us some early insights, allows us to be a bit more proactive as opposed to, sort of playing catch up, if you will. So I mean, there's no perfect answer to it, but it's living and breathing this every day and working with the platforms that gives us the edge and the advantage, I think.
So do you have like in your team of like 500 people, is there like a sort of a special group who are like the kind of data science kind of team, or is it something that's like spread out across the whole organization?
Yeah, no, we definitely have, functional expertise across the team, as well as, generalists and channel managers and channel strategists and so on. But to your point, like the data scientists is sort of more on the technical, the CTO level and operate. They're the ones that are having the senior level,
They're looking big picture at the trends across everything.
Trends and the reports and like, wait, why is there dips here? We're seeing some things going on here. Why are we seeing increases there? That type of thing is how we're trying to, stay.
Okay. So, what do you think is the kind of the one big opportunity that the kind of premium content owners are sort of underestimating in this space at the moment? What are people missing? What should they be thinking about?
Yeah, no, look, I mean, so we talked about localization already. That's certainly one big one. But if I had to come up with another one, I would say, I think one of the biggest hidden gems for content owner is their deep archive content. A lot of times, you tend to find that they're focused on their newest tentpoles, newest shows, whereas, they've got thousands of hours of library content. And we're talking not just like 5-10 years, sometimes even going back 20-30 years or more. It's just sitting on the shelf, so to speak. And, especially in recent years where they've had to pull down stuff off of their SVOD services for a variety of reasons, there is this deep archive content that has the opportunity to be a primary revenue stream for you. And I think that's the opportunity we talk about a lot, and how to make that content work for you in this AVOD space. It is really, I think, one of the most interesting and oftentimes overlooked, because the thing is if you just throw those episodes up on YouTube on a channel, there's only going to be a certain level of performance. It requires investing in really doing all that optimization to bring it up. But once you apply all those best practices and techniques, then it starts really being very lucrative. So I'd say that the deep archive is something that I would say you have, and that's also a great way to start, by the way, because a lot of times your newest stuff you're trying to promote on your SVOD services, your own.
So would you say that that's even the case with the major Hollywood studios that if you went to a Disney or a Warner or somewhere, they've got a deep archive of there's shows in that deep archive that are they're just sitting there, they're not being exploited at all.
And I mean, they're the number one, target for this type of stuff, right? Because they've just literally got thousands of hours. And it's so interesting because a lot of these studios that, users are uploading big chunks of content from these archives. You could search any show from
right. Yeah. Yeah.
and you'll find like full episodes of stuff, and they're sort of just passively claiming this stuff. But the thing is if you actually, turn it into a strategy and a revenue stream, all of a sudden now you're not just collecting sort of passive claimed revenue, but you're now using it as a distribution channel to offer this. Whereas otherwise, it would have, either not been used or just being used in certain other AVOD platforms, so to speak. So that, I think, is really how, certainly for the larger, the majors, it's one very obvious area of opportunity.
So it's been really, really interesting conversation, Dilip. Thank you. It's my final question for you is, what are you most excited about in your business in the next 12 months? Maybe it's signing a massive deal with one of these studios.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's yeah, exactly, Toby. That's too easy. But look, certainly excited about, we have very aggressive expansion plans in the US over the next year, 2026. So I'm super excited about that. And then LATAM too, we talked about that. We do see that as a key engine for our growth, and bringing our monetization model to more partners in that region, I think is going to be a big focus for us this coming year. But all in all, it's just, expanding and bringing more partnerships, bringing more partners on board. That's really the.
All right, fantastic. Well, please come back on the show maybe later in the year, and we'll when some more of these exciting deals get closed, then that'd be great to take the temperature again, because this is a really fast moving, exciting space.
Yeah, thank you so much, Toby. Thanks for having me, and it was great to be with you.
All right, thank you, Dilip.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Inside Content, the TV industry podcast brought to you by 3Vision. With decades of TV industry experience and real-world success, we know the ins and outs of the market like nobody else. To learn more about our TV consultancy services, head to 3vision.tv.